What's up, my guy? How's it going? I'll wait for a few more people to hop on before I start. Um, but definitely wanted to talk about Yushin today. Ah, nice, man. I appreciate that. I'm just getting off of work, but just wanted to talk about an article that I actually read this morning that came out yesterday, talking about the used car market in China and how the growth rate is actually exceeding the new car market. So we'll get this in the stream and get it going. I linked the article in the description below for anyone who wants to take a look at it for themselves. But anyways, here we are. After 2020, after the 2020 downturn, the secondhand car market ushered in a highlight moment. I wonder where the source is for this article. I've heard multiple people talking about it, so this information is correct, but I've never heard of telereport.com. But the information that they're sharing in the article actually came from um, a Chinese government report. So, anyways, they said the secondhand car market ushered in a highlight moment. Our reporter Lu Jin says my country's secondhand car transaction volume exceeded 16 million this year, and the growth rate is expected to reach 15%. Recently, Lu Li, Department Secretary General of China Automobile Dealers Association, made a bold predictions on the domestic secondhand car market at the 2021 China Used Car Conference. The secondhand car market ushered in a highlight moment. Our reporter Lu Jin says my country's secondhand car transaction value exceeded 16 million this year, and the growth rate is expected to reach 15%. Recently, Lu Li made a bold statement. This seems to be the same thing. That's what happens when you use Google Translate. But the reason why Luli is so optimistic about the secondhand car market is closely related to the continuous increase in the volume of secondhand car transactions under the dual benefit policies of the market this year. The market goes out of the big Yang line. After the downturn in 2020, the domestic used car market is picking up rapidly. According to data released by the China Automobile Dealers Association in the first half of 2021, 8.43 million secondhand cars were traded nationwide, a year-over-year increase of 52.89%, compared to sales of 12.891 million cars, new cars. There is still a gap, but the growth rate of secondhand cars is higher than of new cars, out of nearly 27 percentage points. Even in the off season, the auto industry sales in June, the transaction value of used cars increased by 4.43% month on month. At a press conference on business work and operations in the first half of the year, Zhu Lao, I don't know how to say that, I'm sorry, director of the Department of Market Operations and the Consumption Promotion of the Ministry of Commerce, said that it was various policies and measures that affected the overall automobile market and has maintained a stable positive development trend. In the first half of the year, all major indicators have exceeded levels before the epidemic. Specifically, the automotive aftermarket is more active. The ratio between used cars and new car sales has risen to 0.65 to 1%. Compared with the data of a 3.9% decline in the used car market as a whole in 2020, it is an indisputable fact that the popularity of used cars is soaring. In this regard, industry experts gave three explanations. The first is the impact of chip shortages. Similar to the performance of foreign markets over the same period, of the shortage of chips has caused a decline in the supply of new cars, which has caused the car business to rapidly become a seller's market, driving many consumers to buy secondhand cars. Okay, so I want to pause right here because um, that was literally my whole theory. I put out a video a long, long time ago saying that China's chip shortage is Yushin's gain. A lot of people did not believe that. Industry experts are saying that is the first and foremost biggest reason why used car sales are soaring and growing at a more rapid pace than new cars. So that is definitely a thesis that played out correctly. Let's continue on in the article. The second is favorable policies. Before we even read this, this was also something that I was talking about even way before the chip shortage, that China is incentivizing people to buy used cars. So when you hear all this China fear mongering, like we talked about in yesterday's video, it really depends on the industry, on the sector that you're talking about. Of course, education is somewhere that's toxic right now, but China's pumping money into electric vehicles. China's pumping money into secondhand cars. So you really have to dig a little bit deeper and do your research. So they say the second is favorable policies. Beginning in May last year, the value added tax for used cars was reduced from 2% to 0.5%. Exactly. You're paying 0.5% in tax if you buy a used car as opposed to paying 2%. Um, actually, I think it's actually higher if you're buying a new car, but used car tax was previously 2%. So obviously, you're barely paying anything in tax on a used car. That's going to incentivize consumers to put their dollars towards it, which directly reduce the tax cost of dealers operating secondhand car businesses. So as well as consumers, it's making it better for businesses to transact with them. At the same time, the Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of Public Security, and the State Administration of Taxation have successfully introduced policies to abolish the restricted movement of secondhand cars and simplify the transaction process of secondhand cars. The biggest blocking point in the circulation of secondhand cars has been cleared, further releasing the consumption potential of secondhand cars. The third reason is that there's an entry of emerging entities. The domestic used car market has for a long time been dominated by small and micro car dealers. Under the guidance of the tax reduction and other policies, more and more merchants have entered this industry. According to data from Taiwan Czech, there are over 600,000 car dealers in the country. That includes secondhand cars in the business scope, and 22% of the secondhand car related companies that are in the business surviving, moving in, or moving out have been established within 1 year. So this is an emerging market. There's newer players coming into it all the time. Um, More than half of the related companies were established between 1 to 5 years. Lao Li believes that the domestic secondhand car industry is ushering in an unprecedented bright moment. He predicts that his country's secondhand car sales in 2023 will strive to exceed 30 million. In 2025, the secondhand car transaction volume will basically be the same as new car sales. Online trend is obvious. That's why we're here with Yushin. Let's see what he has to say about that actually. The penetration rate of domestic secondhand car e-commerce companies has continued to increase from 7% in 2016 to about 21% in 2021, and the online trend is significant. Okay, that's good for a company like Yushin. So overall, I've linked the article in the description. Basically, used car sales are outselling new cars at this moment in time. That's widely due to the chip shortage. That's widely due, and I'm talking about the growth rate, and that's widely due to the fact that the new car industry, the used car industry in China is an emerging market. So obviously it's you're going to have a higher growth rate when you're going from not to say that they're going from zero, but just so you guys can understand what I'm saying, when you're going from somewhere like 0 to 5 than when you're going from somewhere like 50 to 100. It's going to be easier to grow when your growth is smaller, but so there's a little bit of bias in this article. Also, there's a chip shortage, but I do think that this poses a really good situation for a company like Yushin. Used car market's getting bigger and bigger. And as that market gets bigger, the internet companies are taking a bigger share of that market, is what this article is saying. So I thought this was a really good share just ahead of earnings tomorrow for Yushin. Um, I personally think that it's not going to be as much of a jump as we saw last time in earnings, but I think that it'll be steady and they'll be able to hold the boat. So that's what I think about the used car market. I think that there's for lack of a better term, blue skies ahead for a company like this, especially with the Neo CEO sitting on the board. But I want to know what you guys think about Yushin. I want to know what you guys think about the used car market in China. I want to know what you think about the sector. They say China's cracking down on education. Chinese stocks aren't good. Do you think that this is a safe stock to be in? Hang out a little bit for probably few more minutes, and then we'll get out of here for the day. I have a stuffy nose today, but what do you guys think? Abe says I have 1,000 shares and I'm holding. I'm also holding my shares. It seems like the stock's really been picking up this week too. So that's always good to see. And I'm not mad about that. You said, when is Yushin gonna be 200? That would be awesome. That would be ridiculously crazy if it ever hit that. I don't know if I would still be around. I'm just kidding. Yushin will be $8 to $10. That wouldn't be bad either. That would be really good if they got to $10, $8 to $10 wherever. But it's looking pretty optimistic. They did. I always say that like this is something that I'll be holding at least until 2025. They mentioned something about 2025 that I just read. If I can search on this, okay. Yeah, he said he predicts that the country's secondhand car sales in 2023 will strive to exceed 30 million. In 2025, the secondhand car transaction value will basically be the same as new cars. That's a pretty bold statement, actually. That's a pretty bold claim. So to me personally, not giving financial advice, entertainment purposes, super important to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. But for me personally, this is a company that, I have to be associated with, affiliated with in some type of way, at least until 2025, because it's a long-term play. I think retail attention matters. If there was more eyes on Yushin from retail, could attract bigger money. I completely agree. I completely agree. It's a tough situation to be in because they are traded on American exchanges on an American exchange, and there's all this anti-Chinese rhetoric right now. A lot of people don't feel comfortable putting their money in China because aside from um, just everything that's going on, you don't necessarily completely own the company, and that's the fear for a lot of people, that they think something could happen and they're not protected in worst case scenario. William Lee said China is trying to build up the used car market. Yes, sir, he did. And China themselves even said it. They said by 2025 they want it to be a 2x of what it is today. But anyways, we're going to call it on this video. Thank you guys for hopping on. Hopefully this was helpful. Pretty interesting read. Hopefully they do good in earnings tomorrow. We will see.